All right, welcome everybody. It's Doug here with the LincolnList.com. This is the week review for the 6th of April. I hope everybody enjoyed the extra day off over the Easter holiday. Got a chance to do a little bit of R&R, and now it's time for us to get back to work here on Monday. So we're going to take a look at a few different stocks that might be in play, as well as the overall market conditions and what we could expect this week. Now, for some of you old fogies like myself, Devo did this song back in the 1980s called Jerkin' Back and Forth. That's probably going to be the best explanation I can give here for the way the SPY has been operating. Where we left off last week, we talked a lot about the support levels that were touched a couple of times down at this 204. Now on Thursday, I'm not Thursday, excuse me, on Wednesday, looked like it was going to get down into that, and it just it's still fighting it off a little bit. Although each time it's been bouncing off that level, it's been making a lower high. So if you kind of go back in here to March, once it touched that little support level, it makes a nice little rally. But this high right here, this 210, was definitely just a little bit off of the highs here. And this last pivot up here towards 208 is also lower. So in the short term, we're actually downtrending here, building a little wedge downward. But still, until we really get under that 204 and start to work at that level, that's when I would think, we might see a shift in here. You are getting some from a technical view. You are getting a few of the moving averages now standing on top of the daily chart, such as the 10 and the 20. But we'll take a look and see what happens. Again, it really comes down to 204. Unless this thing can get under 204, I wouldn't expect a bearish shift in this market. I would expect it just to kind of hold there and maybe then just kind of chop back and forth for a while until it really can pick a solid direction. So just kind of keep your eyes on that 204. We're close to that still, and if we do lose that, then we ultimately might come back down and see this 197 area. But let's just see what happens. 204 is a real big number. See if we're able to fight that off for the rest of the week. Now we're going to move over and just kind of look at a couple of different stocks because even though the market does what it does, a lot of these stocks are still moving independently. And as I mentioned last week, just because the market's been pulling back a little bit or been in a somewhat of a chop mode doesn't mean there's not a lot of stocks out there, especially biotech stocks, etc., are really on fire right now. So one I want to take a look at here, I think is the first order of business, at least for me, is I want to take a look at this DYAX as a possible short. You got a really nice gap. Then goes from 15 to 27, and it's actually built on that gap if I kind of expand it here just a little bit. So I think maybe after 2 days now, you've made a pretty good move. You could see a nice little red day start to come into this. Now, what I mean by that, or let's say what I would like to see as the ideal scenario here, is if there's a way this could gap up or really push hard early on in the session Monday, I think that would be the best opportunity for a short. If you could get a piece of that euphoria, because then you would really be looking at maybe a great price from 15 up to that gap at 25, and then maybe moving into the 28s, lower 29s for the first half an hour of trading, then kind of sink into short. That's the way I'd like to see it. There's always the chance that it just gaps down and flushes a little bit. If it does that, then there's not really a trade for me, at least at that point in the morning, because I would not chase it into any red. We've seen a lot of these stocks kind of flash like they want to go red, and it's something that you should be paying attention to. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Just a typical viewpoint. Now, it's just not this stock, but we're seeing a lot of stocks do that. We saw KRFT, we saw ESPR pull this stunt a couple days in a row. It's really common. You take a look at Thursday's action, you get this flush right here, just right out of the open. You start to see 15, 20 minutes of selling. This is my upper chart here, 5-minute bars. You see 15, 20 minutes of selling into the top of the hour. And then it looks like this thing's going to flush. You got shorts piling on top of this thing, and then it just kind of bases right down here off 24.72 and then starts launching. And then within a couple of hours, this thing's making new highs again and just ripping. So you got to be careful about chasing these things into red bars. Even though they're up a lot, if you miss them, and you catch a couple of these reds, if you're going to chase into it, you're going to get burned. It's just going to probably flush, because even though these stocks are overbought, they usually just don't flush and just keep selling off the entire day. There'll always be bounces in there, and shorts who've been in it for a while are going to cover. So I wouldn't do that move. Actually, if it flushed and washed out like this, I'd probably be more interested in buying it than I would be shorting it. But the plan I would like to see, and what I would like to do here, is I would like to see a nice strong push, maybe a few strong parabolic candles out of the open, push us close towards 29, then sink into a short. If that doesn't happen, then I'll just have to reevaluate and see what might happen. So DYAX, I want to keep this one up here as a potential short play. I also want to see this XON. It's been a pretty good trader for us over the last week or so. in the trade room. You see I already got the alert set up here. These are what I'm talking about. Some of these will do some very, very nice fades, and I think we talked about that last week. OVAS, for example, OVAS was one we talked a couple of times last week. There are some potential bounce plays on some of these that have pulled back. What I like about this one is the 50 moving average right here on the daily chart is around 39.63 and some change. You're sitting here at 41.26. If we could get a move into that number. Now, if it doesn't go down there, I'm not interested, at least the way it stands right now trading this. But if there's a flush in the morning, maybe a little bit of panic in this one, you like when we're looking at shorting the parabolic and DYAX, we want that early morning to be parabolic so we can kind of lean into the short. Here we're kind of doing the reverse. Like to see a little flush. The last time this thing buried down on the 50 moving average back here, you got a nice pop from 38 and a strong move up to 48. So you got a $10 bounce off of it. Just a bounce play for me, day trade only. But if we get down into that moving average, then I would be pretty interested in buying some of this, using that 50 moving average as a stop and a guide. Another one that kind of looks the same, but not quite, is Once, ONC. Another big mover that really has a nice double top, was a short for us this week off of that nice little resistance area. This one's getting close to the 20. So you got two of these charts right now that are coming. The 50 moving average is obviously more important than the 20 on the daily chart, but you got both of these here approaching some nice moving averages, and if in the case they flush down into those levels, I think it'd be a great pickup. Pick up a few shares long, find a few base points intraday where you can manage your risk a little bit, and then see if the things will just bounce. And as I said, they're just trades only. So when you're looking at a bounce, maybe you get 60 cents, 80 cents, a dollar, or whatever it might be. If it bounces, either trail up your stops or take your profits. But XON here is a little bit better. It's approaching a more critical area. So I think we might be able to get a flush down there and pick up a bounce. And of course with Once, it's just a 20 moving average, but nonetheless, it's pretty close. So you might be able to pick up a couple of bounce plays there. Last I'm going to put on this list is this NYMX. Nice little cheapy stock here that's, been on a nice little run. Like you can see the last 3 days here, this thing's launched from about 65 cents to $1.73. Pretty big percent move for this little stock. And I mean, there's a lot of error that you can, I guess, say that would fill in here. But I think I want to short this. Well, I don't think. I definitely want to short this one. As always with DYAX, or a stock that's been in a run-up for, this one's 3 days now, you always like to get, I mean, you can't always get it, but you do like to get that early morning surge or that early morning parabolic, just that one little last piece to kind of capture everyone, and then to kind of lean in short. This one was just bouncing off the VWAP. That's what this little gray line is on the 5-minute chart up here. Just bouncing off that all day. So, if you can start moving under 172, then you're probably going to get this thing to flush. These things have been a little bit stubborn, and there's probably, well, there's not probabilities about it. I'm sure this is a crowded short as well. And it's probably going to make it a little bit more difficult, because the more crowded the short becomes, it becomes vulnerable to squeezes. So if it does become stubborn, shorts are going to cover, which is buying back the stock. It's just going to make it go a little bit higher. We'll see if it can go back into 2. Just kind of look at a couple of levels. I'm definitely short biased on this NYMX, but I just want to see what happens through it, how it maybe operates here for the next 30 minutes into the open, and then kind of go from there and decide as to whether or not I want to short this or pick a few levels to manage the risk. So anyway, there's a few decent stocks there to kind of get your day started. I think we're going to have another great week. We've seen some really good opportunities pretty much since the beginning of the year, even going back to last year. There's been some great opportunities and some really good stocks to trade. So if you're kind of sitting there and you're struggling, maybe you're in a chat room already and it's just too noisy and you can't seem to follow along with any of the trades, and nobody's there to help you, or you're just kind of sitting there trading alone and you're winging it stubbornly and you're just not getting to where you want to be as a trader, take a look at the linkenlist.com. All the trades that we do are live, voiced audio, just like you're hearing right now. You see it live on screen, and I think that really helps you kind of understand what traders are looking at each day, how we're finding the stock setups, how we're managing these trades, where our entry points, because it's more than just hot setups. It takes a lot. I mean, you got to put a lot of things together to be a great trader. So if your goal is to be great and you're not getting there, visit the linkenlist.com. See if our educational format can get you to the next level. Other than that, as always, thanks for watching this video. Have a great week of trading. Talk to you soon.